Welcome to Flipped Classroom. Today's lesson is the critical approaches to literature with a focus on Marxist criticism. Marxist criticism is based on the political and economic theories of Karl Marx. Marxists think that a society is propelled by its economy, which is then manipulated by the class system. Most people in a society are the workers. The workers tend to remain lower class because history and art convinces them of their social status. On the other end, the owners, the bourgeoisie, are the creators and manipulators of this history and art, which keep the lower classes, the workers, in their place. The main objective of Marxist criticism is to unmask our limited view of society's structures. If you take a look at the picture, you'll see that capitalism is the economic force that Marxists are criticizing. They have the wealthy on top, followed by the educated and the religious elite, followed by the military, and then of course the wealthy, the owners of the factories, and then at the very bottom, the working class, which holds up all the other parts of society. So Marxism attempts to reveal the ways in which our socio-economic system is the ultimate source of our experience. In other words, our experiences in life are predetermined by the economic structure in which we live. Marxist criticism is also known as an economic determinist theory, and that's because it emphasizes the primary influence on our life is the economy. And in this type of system, society is an oppression between the capitalist and the working class. So Marxism is interested in how the lower or the working classes are oppressed in their everyday life. And this is seen specifically in different forms of art, such as literature. Marxist criticism also examines closely the relationship between class and ideology. And class is referring to your social and economic standing, whether you're high class, low class, middle class. And ideology is referring to the main underlying principles. When you put these together, class and ideology can reflect, promote, and sometimes even challenge the prevailing social order. For example, if the working class is trying to overthrow the elite class, the bourgeoisie. And a Marxist criticism looks at how those in power are able to maintain their power, and part of it is the strategy they use to justify it through art and literature. So Marxist criticism tends to look at the struggle that exists between the working class and the ruling or the elite class. The literature that emerged from Marxist criticism as literary theory focuses on individuals in the grips of a class struggle. So if you've read or seen the movie Hunger Games, you'll remember that the character of Katniss and her family and the people living in her district are the working class, and they are being suppressed by the capital, the people in the higher class. So from a Marxist perspective, you would be reading the book or watching the movie exploring the class struggles between Katniss and the people in the capital. Because Marxist criticism has an emphasis on persons of the lower class and their constant oppression by the upper class. And through this lens, the poor may try to escape their situation, such as Katniss may temporarily escape her poverty by winning the Hunger Games, but ultimately fall back because the ruthless dominion of the capitalist oppressors. So in other words, Marxist theory says the working class will rise up, but ultimately they fell because the higher class is so powerful. Marxist criticism also looks at the connection between ideology and homogeny. And that's because it's an examination of how assumptions shape the perception of reality for people in a culture. For example, taking a look at these coal miners, how do they perceive their role in society? Do the coal miners actually believe that the highest they can ever achieve in life is maybe a higher position in the coal mine, that they would never be the coal mine owners? So combining these together would look at how does a controlling class convince the working class that their way of life is in their best interest? How do you keep coal miners continuing to work in those conditions? What does the controlling class, the wealthy class, the higher class do specifically through literature and art that shapes the perception of the working class? So Marxist critical theory questions, here's a few when reading literature. You might look at what are the characters' economic situations, or what happens to these characters as a result of their economic status. How does being poor or being wealthy affect the results, affect the plot of the story? How are the characters' lives influenced by their social or political or these economic forces? And what social forces and institutions are represented in the text? And does the text even overlook the economic, social, or political implications of its characters? OWL Purdue is a great site for more information about Marxist literary theory. And some of the questions they suggest to ask: whom does it benefit if the work or effort is accepted, successful, or believed? What is the social class of the author? What class does the work claim to represent? What values does this piece of literature reinforce or subvert? What conflict can be seen between the values of the work champions and those it portrays? Also, what social classes do the characters represent? And how do these characters from different classes interact or even conflict? So in review, using a Marxist lens when looking at literature is looking at the power struggles between the social classes. Thank you for joining me today in Flipped